Peace, peace, everybody. We're here.
Peace, peace. Peace, 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 everybody. Welcome. You see us too, so you know what it is. It is another fine Saturn day, and you are here with Nick and Roo, Mawulisatemple, beautiful upstate New York. UnRead. We are here again to bring you some of our greatest hits. That's what I call them, the greatest hits. So again, this is Saturday. This is your sister Roo, and that's Nick. We're here with some books this week. This is a surprise me week. So you know when you guys get a surprise me week, you can end up with anything. But of course, you know, we went through and we love to try to surprise each other anyway and just throw each other way off. So I can only imagine this week is going to be just as much fun. It's a great day for rainy, sitting back, nice cup of tea and a book. So curl on up, get your pencil out just so you can write down the name of these books. But Nick is fantastic. Always have all the information underneath us. And hey, just enjoy yourself. Nick, how has your week been? I know mine has been long.
Yeah, same. Mine has been long. It's been, up and down and all around. But I made it here, and I'm ending it on a strong note. So I'm happy about that. And today is April 5th. So we just to give you the numbers real quick, we had the influence of that number 5, and the number 5 is a literary number. It's connected to authors and writers. So if you have a number 5 in your birthday, let's say you're born on the 5th or the 14th or the 23rd of the month, or if you have 5s elsewhere in your chart, like you're a 5 life path, or you have a bunch of 5s in your name, that's if you're familiar with numerology, then you may want to try your hand at writing, and publishing a book. Of course, I would say all people should try to write something and try to publish something, but especially if you have those 5s in your name, and then in your numeral scope, and then with the sum total of today, the 4th month of April, 5th day in 2025, it's a 9 universal day. And I don't know how the weather is where you're at, but where Roo and I are, Roo is in the beautiful upstate New York. I'm in North Jersey. It's been gray and rainy and gloomy, and I'm bringing that up because Roo just said it's a great day to curl up with a book, and I'll add on to that and say that in the 9 universal day, it's all about completions and bringing things to a close. So why not finish that book that you've been sitting on for months now, and that's been taking you 4, 5, 6 months to finish? Why don't you take this day and bring that book to a close, whatever book that is? Because I know if you a reader, if you read books, I know you got one of those books out there that you've been sitting on for a while that you need to finish. So go ahead and finish that book today on this 9 universal day. Bring it to a close.
Yeah.
End it out.
Yes. Well, you know what? Don't be telling my business. I got like 5 books. I'm always reading more than one book at a time. It's crazy. I've been that way my whole life. So my brain has gotten used to it. But trust me, other people look and they be like, wow. But you know what? You are so right. And thank you so much for always bringing us the numbers. I love that. And I love to see how they correlate to the things that we're doing. And definitely today is a reading day for sure. For sure. And for all my number 5s, and you heard what he said, get those books out there so you can come on here with us and talk about them. Mm-hmm. And we can add them to our list. Well, Nick, I'm gonna tell you, when I'm trying to surprise you, I be trying to come from some angle that you can't possibly see. Right. I spend so much time like, what is it that our listeners and Nick will never expect? Well, you know what? You guys have been with me and Mawulisatemple for a while, and if you've been with Nick, you know that we have all kinds of things in our collection. And bringing stuff to you this week is no different. I've had a great time trying to figure out what to bring and surprise you with. I don't know what you got, but I bet you a dime to a dollar you couldn't even begin to guess where my book is coming from today.
Listen, I wouldn't even take that bet.
Absolutely. What about you? I can ramble on about my books forever, but I want to give you an opportunity this week to kind of jump out there ahead of us and lead us through what do you have, because I'm nosy just like I am. I love to read these books, and I've been trying to think all week, what is he going to bring? Is it going to be fiction? Is it going to be nonfiction? Is it going to be history? Is it going to be? So I am here for it, Nick. What do you got for us this week?
Well, the funny thing about you wondering those things is that I wasn't even sure myself. I'll be honest with you. I didn't select my book until maybe about an hour ago.
Oh, you are funny. You are hilarious. I love it.
Yeah.
What you said is a surprise to me too.
Right, exactly. It was in the back of my head, all week. I knew this stream was coming up, and I knew I needed to select a book, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. I really had to sit there in front of this bookshelf and look around like, what should I bring out? So I decided to, I decided to bring a book that's, in a way, indirectly, it's thematic, for April. So welcome to April, everyone. This is our first show for the month of April. It's a new month. We're still in the first week. Forgot to mention that. And of course, April is National Poetry Month, and April is and during this month, in my full-time career as an English teacher with my AP literature students, we are going through a poetry unit in order to prepare them for the AP exam that's coming up next month, in about a month from now. So I was feeling poetic, but I'm not bringing a poetry book. I'm bringing a book that's related to poetry in a way. And this book would be considered a read that should be revisited.
Okay.
So I read this book many, many years ago. I actually read it when I was in college. And I got this book at the beginning of my college matriculation. I was in college from 2009 to 2013. I got this book in around 2010. This book was also used in the curriculum for one of the courses that I was auditing or sitting in. So I wasn't registered for this course because of a scheduling conflict, but I was able to sit in on it because I was just so interested in the topic. So the book that I'm bringing today that's related to poetry, it is called To the Break of Dawn. That's the main title. Let me put this on the full screen so the people can see that better. And I'll get out light. Yeah, so To the Break of Dawn, a freestyle on a hip-hop aesthetic.
Oh, wow.
Oh, let me put it back on the split screen. Let me get that reaction.
I was just like, oh, wow.
I heard it. Yeah, they heard it. They didn't see it though, but they heard it. Yes.
I love that.
To the Break of Dawn, a freestyle on the hip hop aesthetic, and this is written by William Jelani Cobb, or Jelani Cobb for short.
Mm-hmm.
And this book. Now, before I even audited that hip hop class, that's what the class was. It was a hip hop class. I think it dealt with the history and then also some of the contemporary things. So one of the texts for that class was this book. Another text was a book called I think it's called Can't Stop, Won't Stop, and it was about the history of hip hop. But this one is dealing specifically with the aesthetic. So it does go into some history, but it deals strictly with more so with the aesthetics of hip hop. And just to give some background, I preface by saying that I got this book before I audited the class. So the author visited campus and did a book reading, book signing, book discussion.
Of course he did.
Yeah, at the campus bookstore. And I think he also might be affiliated with the university. He might have attended there or worked there at some point. I thought I saw that, looking online when I was looking up some updated information about him. But I'm pretty sure this was around the time when I was doing my exploration of the fraternities on campus. So when I was checking out Alpha Phi Alpha, those brothers brought Jelani Cobb out to campus, and that was one of their rush week events. Was the book book discussion, and then either later in the week or later in the day, Mr. Cobb, he had a one-on-one discussion that we all attended with another one of the professor that actually taught the hip hop course, Dr. Greg Carr. So Dr. Greg Carr and Jelani Cobb, sat down and had a discussion on hip hop in this book. So needless to say, I know, Roo, this is gonna. You hate when I do this. You hate when I do this, but I got the autograph there.
Of course you do. And
it says best wishes to a fellow scribe. Tell the story.
Oh wow.
Yep, and he wrote that because my major in college was journalism. So I told him that was my major, so that's why he addressed me as a fellow scribe and to tell the stories. And
how
the date,
nice is that?
And the date is up there, November 17th, 2010.
Wow.
Yep. All right, so what is this book about? I mentioned aesthetic, but let's go into the description and the blurb here. A kid from Queens who spent his youth at the epicenter of this new art form, William Jelani Cobb takes readers inside the beats, the lyrics, and the flow of hip hop. The four pillars of hip hop, breakdancing, graffiti art, DJing, and rapping, find their origins and traditions as diverse as the Afro-Brazilian martial art capoeira and Caribbean immigrants' turnstile artistry. Tracing hip hop's relationship to ancestral forms of expression, Cobb explores the cultural and literary elements that are at its core, from KRS-One and Notorious B.I.G. to Tupac Shakur, who I have on my shirt today, and Lauryn Hill.
Oh, you was ready.
Yeah. I'm not even fully ready because I realized that I could do a little cross referencing too. So that might be something I do on the fly here. But he profiles MCs who were pivotal to the rise of the genre, verbal artists whose lineage runs back to the Black preacher and the blues man. Written with an insider's ear, the book illuminates hip hop's innovations in the freestyle form that speaks to both aficionados and newcomers to the art. So that's the description and a little bit about Jelani Cobb. At the time of this publication, he was associate professor of history at Spelman College. He was a contributing writer at Essence Magazine, and his criticism has also appeared in the Washington Post, Emerge, and the Progressive. And when I did a quick search on him prior to coming on here, I see that if this information is accurate, he's currently the dean at the journalism school at Columbia University.
Very nice.
So that's what he's doing now, and he might have some other works. He was also the editor of the Essential Harold Cruz, a reader. And so that's some information about the author. And just to add some additional context, I would say, hip hop is probably one of my favorite genres. It's between hip hop and R&B. my favorite genres in general: hip hop, R&B, gospel, but hip hop is probably my favorite. So I have personal connections, to this work, and I've studied hip hop from multiple angles, both through independent study and through formal education, and not just auditing that class in undergrad at Howard University, but also taking a hip hop and teaching English class in grad school when I was doing my teacher education training or program. Now, I wasn't fully prepared because I just realized when I was reading this description, especially the part about the origins of hip hop and ancestral forms of expression, I forgot that this is exactly or part of what the Black Dot talks about in Hip Hop Decoded.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So I forgot about that. I forgot to connect it to Hip Hop Decoded. And but he goes even farther back because Black Dot, or so Jelani Cobb, he's more of the academic, in the history, dealing with the history and all that. And growing up on hip hop, the Black Dot, he not only grew up in hip hop, but he was a part of it. He was a part of a rap group in the 80s, signed to a major, record label, but he goes a little bit deeper because he goes into the metaphysical side of hip hop, and even further into the ancestral realm, connecting the elements of hip hop to ancient times, the hieroglyphs of ancient Kemet, relating that to graffiti, and the rainmakers, connecting that to the b-boying and the DJ, the oracle, the griot who told the oral traditions, relating that to the MC, and the drums, connecting that to the DJ and the music. So he goes into a little bit of that in here. So I just wanted to mention that. I'm not going to go into a in-depth cross-examination or cross-reference of that. So I'm going to keep my focus primarily on To the Break of Dawn, and give you all some highlights and an overview of the contents of this book, and to maybe point out one of my most significant memories and takeaways from this book that was mentioned in that description that I just read. So there's five chapters, including an introduction. The introduction is called Microphone Check. but the chapters are called The Roots, The Score, Word of Mouth, Asphalt Chronicles, Hip Hop and the Storytelling Tradition. So you see the ancestral connection there with the storytelling tradition, and the 7 MCs. As a matter of fact, a side comment about storytelling tradition before I forget about it later on in my discussion is that in my hip hop and teaching of English class, that's what I wrote one of my papers about. I wrote about hip hop being a method of telling stories, and how you can make that connection to the English classroom, because it follows the pretty much the same type of narrative structure. There's an opening, there's some rise in action, there's a climax with the highest point of action, there's some fall in action, there's a conflict in a lot of hip hop stories and songs. So I discussed some of those that I was most fond of or most memorable to me. But I just want to mention that as a side note. But yeah, so it's five chapters. It's the book is about 200 pages. There's a conclusion, there's shout outs, there's extensive notes at the end. Now, I did not annotate this book much. I did dog ear or one page. That looks like only dog ear one page. But since I haven't read this book in, since around 2010, it's pretty. I'll say for the most part, it's like I'm picking this book up for the first time, even though I know what it's about, and I do have that one connection or that one or that one section in the book that I do recall. It is like I'm picking it up for the first time. So I definitely recommend to myself that I reread it, and as a comparison to see what has changed over time, what similarities do we see between the time that the book was published, because I got it in 2010, but it was actually published in 2007. So I forgot to mention that it was published in 2007 by New York University Press. My other university for grad school, New York University, and it's interesting that I use this book as a reference in my paper for New York University. But yeah, like what has changed between 2007 and 2025? I would be interested in approaching this book as a reread from that perspective. What has changed? What's still the same? Has anything changed? Is it one of those situations where what do they say? The game ain't changed, just the names of the players. Is there a new set of 7 MCs? That's because that's chapter 5, and I mentioned that when I was reading the description. The 7 MCs that he profiles, who were pivotal or had a significant impact in hip hop. But the part that that really stood out to me, and I still remember from reading this book back in 2010, was the part about the Black preacher, and that was speaking in terms of the aesthetics of the Black preacher. And Cobb drew parallels between the verbal aesthetics of the hip hop MC and the verbal aesthetics of the Black preacher. And some of those aesthetics included, call and response, and the what do you call them, maybe like the cadence of the voice, how the cadence of the Black preacher and the cadence of the MC, how their voices can adjust and go to different levels in the middle of a sermon or in the middle of a party, if it's an MC for a DJ, or in the middle of a freestyle rap, if someone is rapping. The improvisation of the Black preacher when he's up in the pulpit, he might have his sermon notes, but then the Spirit hit him and then he go off somewhere else. And how that rapper does the same thing. They may have some written lyrics, but in the freestyle they might go into another direction. So I've never thought about it from that perspective until I read this book, and to see that how similar the preacher and the MC are. Because I always thought about other genres, other Black music genres, such as, R&B. When you think of James Brown, a lot of the elders and experts on hip hop, will argue that James Brown was one of the first quote unquote rappers before, rap was a thing. So I knew about those, and I was familiar with those examples and those comparisons, but I never thought about the preacher being compared to the MC, and I thought that made a lot of sense. I was like, wow, yeah. So so I don't have much. Like I said, since I haven't read this book in so long, I don't have much to say, and I didn't. And like I said, I picked this book out like an hour before we got on, so I didn't take much time to look through it and pick out some passages, but this is my offering for this week, for this episode, To the Break of Dawn, a freestyle on the hip hop aesthetic by Jelani Cobb.
Wow. Yes. Oh man, let me just say, for all our listeners, if this is your first time with us, welcome. If this is not, welcome back. As you know, we love bringing this kind of stuff to you guys. We keep it light, we keep it fun, because books are fun for us. We are nerds. So you have found your tribe if you've been looking for your book tribe. And Nick, I love that book. And one of the things I think that I really enjoy, and we've said it before, is that we always kind of try to find some way, to see how our books tie together, if at all. In some kind of way, they always seem to tie themselves together, even in the smallest of ways. But before I get into how they tie themselves together, I wanted to say, again, when you said that he came to Howard, I was like, oh, he got a signature. Damn it. It's another one. Oh man, if you guys don't know, Nick and I, we go back and forth about these autographed books. And just for anybody that did not catch the Patty B episode, go back and check that one out, because I recently just ordered Patty B books for all my granddaughters, and I had the author sign them all, because it is never too early, as you can see, to start collecting your autographed copies. Thank you, Nick, for that PSA.
yeah, just like give you that reminder.
Never forget. I think it's beautiful, because I know I have some older books, and I'm sure you do too, Nick, that you may have found autographed to other people. You might have picked the book up at a used bookstore, what have you, but it's nothing like having your own books that you were there for. You got to meet the author, or you got to get a signature, and that what he put in there about the fellow scribe thing, that is pretty awesome. For you guys who don't know Nick, man, listen, journalism, this guy right here, this is the one you want when you want anything literary. So remember, the professor, he is in the building. So can you tell me, you were talking about how this tied into your education for, preparation to work in the schools. What ways have you used this type of literature to, inspire your classrooms?
Okay, sure. So I mentioned the paper that I wrote on storytelling in hip hop. I don't have it with me. That's actually at the school. I have it in a folder of other work that I did between high school and college. But I use the narrative elements in hip hop to teach narrative and storytelling in hip hop in a couple of times. So there were some occasions where I picked out a song, printed out the lyrics, gave them to the students, and we did different literary devices. So we did storytelling as one of them. So I had the students identify the parts of a story. I mentioned narrative structure. So if you're not in the education realm or understand those or you're not familiar with those terms that I mentioned, there's a what they call a narrative structure, which pretty much means the main parts of a story. A narrative is just another word for a story. So you can go to the very simple format, which is just beginning, middle, and end, but you can add some more kind of context and distinction to that beginning, middle, and end, and look at narrative structure. And visually, it looks like almost looks like a mountain in a way. So the first part of it is called the exposition. the exposition is basically the beginning of the story. You know, what's the setting? Who are the characters? What's the situation at the beginning of the story? And then it goes to the rising action, meaning these are the sequence or the plot events that are building up to the climax. Climax is the third aspect of the narrative structure, which is the highest point, or the highest point of action in the story. And that's usually associated with a conflict. Conflict is a problem between two characters, or a character and their internal self. And then from the climax, you go to the falling action. That's when things start to calm down a bit, like the action starts to drop. The problem, steps towards a resolution are being made. And then sometimes in some narrative structures, you could stop at the falling action, or you might have a fifth one that they call the resolution, where the problem is solved. Whatever conflict there was, it gets resolved in the resolution. So I use hip hop lyrics to teach that structure, for example. So for example, one of the songs that I used like years ago when I was working at the charter school, I used Renee by the Lost Boys, and how Mr. Cheeks was telling the story about Renee, and they had the students identify all the elements of the narrative. So I use storytelling to teach the students narrative elements. As far as other poetic and literary devices, I used metaphor. I think one year we had the students break down a song called Beach Chair by Jay-Z, and to teach metaphor, because he uses the beach chair as a metaphor for life. He says life is a beach chair. Life is like a beach chair. So I've used hip hop lyrics to teach, metaphor and simile, and these devices that show up in poetry and other forms of literature. And I've also used hip hop for non-literature or English kind of lessons too, by connecting themes to hip hop songs. As a matter of fact, this wasn't specifically about hip hop that I did recently, but it was more connected to music in general. And the students were reading Hamlet by William Shakespeare, and one of the alternate projects I gave them was to create a playlist for Hamlet. So what they had to do was they had to pick out songs that they thought related to the themes of Hamlet, and they had to discuss how the song connects to the play, pretty much. Like what themes come up in the song that come up in the play that that make them related. So I do things like that. Well, I teach English. I don't really teach history, but like I said, sometimes history and social studies might come up in some of our themes and topics in class. So we're able to connect songs to some of those social issues that are going on. So we do things like that. I do things like that in the classroom. But yeah, I've also had students write album reviews, as a way to practice their writing and practice their expository writing. So and when they're writing reviews, they're practicing their summarization skills, learning how to summarize. They're practicing their argumentative and their opinion writing, because they're giving their opinion on a project or a piece of music. It's also they're also practicing analysis and synthesis, because they're breaking down what songs are about, and they're evaluating that. That's another skill. They're also evaluating music when they're writing these reviews. They're synthesizing. If it's a project with multiple songs on it, they're synthesizing all the songs together into a cohesive summary. Well, not cohesive summary, but a cohesive analysis of a project by talking about multiple songs within one album or mixtape. So there's a lot of, I've approached it from a few different angles. There's a lot of different directions that I've taken, hip hop, and incorporated into the English classroom.
I love it. I love it. I don't know about you guys, but I had very few teachers that were as hip as Mr. Westbrook's. It's something to be able to help to shape and mold young minds, direct young minds. And, when you can use the things that they're interested in to do that, I'm sure that it's much easier to get across some of the concepts that many of us struggled with teachers that didn't quite understand how to not so mechanically give us those things. I was sitting here and I was thinking to myself, wow, finding music to match Hamlet. I was sitting here saying to my mind, what would I put with because I just the other day I was watching Denzel and Othello, and I was just like, I was thinking to myself, what music would have went well in that? You know what I mean? Because think about how they set it up. They set up the scenes in black and white, so you got to have something that's a little gritty but not too much. So I can only imagine how much fun a project like that must have been. Mr. Westbrooks, you are him. The professor is in the building, y'all. And you know what? I don't know if questions and things or comments are coming in on your side, Nick, but I will let you know that I'm sure we'll have bunches of them afterwards. And a lot of people may want to hear about that paper you wrote. So be prepared. That is awesome. Again, as educators, it's our job, to take what it is we come across and find ways to share it and make it relevant to what it is that we are working with the youth or whatever, group that it is we are trying to share with. So I appreciate that you were able to take something so relative, which is music, and be able to use that in a way to guide our youth and help to shape and mold, their minds, our future readers and writers. I love it.
Yes, yeah,
definitely.
And I have a great time doing it. I have a fun time doing it, so that makes it even better.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? I mean, I'm in health and health and wellness and education, and I think about how we use music, to help in the healing process and dealing with traumatic, memories and things like that, helping to be able to journal. So I can definitely relate. Just as a when I can say for myself, even as an adult, when I'm feeling a way, it's certain music that I can use to help to be a catalyst for, whatever it is I'm feeling at the time. I tell people like this: if you ever walk in and you hear the Ghetto Boys or or DMX, you might just want to leave. You know what I'm saying? Because that might not be the best time to talk to me. But if you come in and you hear KRS-One, Lord Jamar, some of these other things, it's a safe space. You know what I'm saying? So I love that. And I love this offering. Show it to us again, Nick, and let everybody know. And again, all of these, all of our references will be down in the description. Nick is great about that. He's always sharing all of our information down there so we can go back and pick up some of this information to the break of dawn. And the other thing I did want to say is I definitely can see the reference between the black ministers and the MC, because they both are there to do what? Move the crowd. You know what I mean? They both there to move the crowd. You know, they do what they do. They have a plan, but they come in and be like, let me read the room. And they are able to do so. And so I definitely can see how that call and response, all of that stuff like there, you know, is a great reference. You know, I will tell anybody, you know, one of the I haven't been to a whole lot of hip hop concerts, but one of the greatest things I think I ever did for myself was like in 2017. It was the All Stars of Hip Hop down in Atlantic City. You know, Flavor Flav. You know, it was quite the lineup. You know, and I thought about Flavor Flav just because, you know, he was the hype man. He was the one who, you know, when things were slowing down a little bit, he would get out there and bring the crowd up. You know what I'm saying? And we all know he is a character, and some of these pastors are just as much they are characters, but they keep the crowd going. And you know what? As long as you get the people involved, get their attention, you know, get the message across, that's what it's all about. So to the break of dawn, I love it.
Yes.
Love it, love it, love it. Like I don't even know if I want to go now.
But now you didn't got me all excited and curious about what you bringing.
Well, you know, books have been a part of my life my whole life. You know, you guys been with us for a while. You know, my mother was an avid reader. She took us every weekend, make sure that we had books. And when we were on punishment, do you know, just for me, you know, she had it special just for me. If we were on punishment, I couldn't read. So can you imagine the torture of being in the house and can't read, can't write. You just got to sit there with your thoughts. Oh, goodness gracious. But, you know, one of the things that I will say is then when we weren't feeling well, one of the things she would always let us do is curl up with a book and a cup of tea or a cup of soup. And we were allowed to just have quiet time. And you know, so for those reasons, you know, I always think about ways to just make sure that I use reading and writing, you know, in the health and wellness space, you know, by letting people know reading these things sometimes really help us to get out of whatever it is we're going through and take us into the imagination, to the mind, to these places, you know, far, far away from some of the dark realities we be dealing with, you know, in life. And, you know, it is interesting, you know, even in the tiniest ways that we tie our books together. This book that I'm bringing this week is a part of a series of books. Those who know me know that I love to read any kind of books, does not matter, children's books, comic books, you know, it's history books. And I love series. I'm into a lot of sci-fi and fantasy stuff and always take an opportunity to learn from those. But this particular book that I'm bringing today is part of a 4-book series. And it also ties in something else that I love, which is spiritual development. So my offering this week, and the reason I said it was going to blow your mind is because I said, well, how can I get Nick? Because I know he's going to bring something good. So I did not just go to my bookshelf. I said, what can I go? What can I do? And I thought about it. I said, I can show just how much of a nerd I am. So when I was in the hospital, I had a couple of doctors that got a kick out of the fact that anytime anybody came to visit me, they would bring me books. And so the doctor was like, you know, before you leave here, you're gonna have a library. My son was, I believe he was in northern Italy or somewhere at the time. And he was just like, Mom, you really have to, you know, we can't keep, you know, sending books to the hospital. And I'm like, okay. He said, but I got you something else. So not only is this a throwback, this is a throwback in technology, a throwback in books, and a sweet opportunity for unreads that I can promise you nobody has UnRead. So,
oh boy, here we go.
Take a look at this.
Okay, let me put up on the full screen. Okay.
Does anybody know what this is?
I know I don't.
Is an original. Well, there's my Hello Kitty. An original Kindle, black and white version.
Whoa.
So I took out my Kindle and I charged it up because, we keep everything right and exact. There are 495 books on here. I had to check to see how many I have. And the book that I am bringing to you today is the first book in a 4-book series by Ted Dekker and Tosca Lee called The Keeper. The Keeper, a short story prequel to Forbidden. Okay, so I'm going to read to you a little bit about these books. And like I said, I wanted to just bring that Kindle because I knew you wasn't coming off the shelf with no Kindle.
Yeah, you're right about that. Right about
that's
that.
An original one too. It's original, no color, no nothing, black and white, yada 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 to the end of all of that. So The Keeper, Dekker and Lee, great authors. They are Christian authors. Hey, see that tied to the pastor, right?
Oh yeah.
It's a 2011 fiction short story by Christian author Ted Dekker and Tosca Lee. It is the prequel to the story of the first book in the Book of Mortals series. So why did we have this? So we do the human rights stuff, and we always talk about unmasking morality and our values and things changing, and how we come to do the things we do, why we think the way we do, and things like that, how it leads and leads our lives. So this particular set of books, like I said, it's a prequel to the Book of Mortals series, and the first book is Forbidden. So let's just talk about the plot summary here. While in the Russian wasteland, Talus, which is one of the main characters, has a secret that is so terrible that it will cost him his life if he shares it. The secret is so horrible that he must share it with those who will help him to protect the knowledge that one day will save us all in humanity. His 2 brothers, who are both hermit monks, are the ones he has decided to share his secret with. Time is short, and no man could fully prepare themselves with the revelation that the secret holds. The secret that Talus and his 2 brothers will discover is that they're already dead. And this is such a great book because while it was a quote unquote, Christian author, this book is definitely geared towards the younger crowd. So you probably won't see a bunch of elders sitting around reading it unless they really are educators, because this is one of the reasons I got it. It's a great way to talk about hard themes and hard topics with the youth. And some of the things that are going on right now are relevant even to this particular work, because there are people right now who are saying, we live in a simulation. We're not even really here. We are dead. And so for this book to touch that topic is definitely something that could be used even right now. So The Keeper is this book. This one is short. It is a prequel. And then they have, and that came out 2011, and also 2011 was the first book, Forbidden. The third book would be Mortal, and the 4th book would be Sovereign. Now, just a little background, when he says that his brothers are monks, he hadn't seen them for a long time. They basically had forgotten him, and he had forgotten, well, he didn't forget them, but they had forgotten him. And so basically he was in this sleep state, and his job was to come and wake them up with this particular truth that would then put their lives in danger. And if we think about some of the things that are coming to light right now in the world, it is almost like a death, you know, for many people to be able to put down some of the indoctrination and things like that and begin to examine again their moral compass and why they do some of the things that they do. And these books are a great representative of that. This, you know, one of the things that I say is that the themes in that they cover in these books in terms of, you know, sharing ancient knowledge, you know, going back to a simpler way of life, being forced back into a simpler way of life, dealing with tyrants and things like that, taking yourself from slave to sovereign. These are a lot of the themes that we deal with even right now. So this book by these gentlemen is one that I can say is timeless, and they have several series of books. And while they don't all tie together, they all address morals, characters, values, you know, and current issues, things like that, and to help people just find their way along in this process, in this life. And it does tie itself and lend itself to things of the past, things of the present, and definitely things to the future. So that is my offering, The Keeper, the 4-part series, you know, by Dekker. And oh, just a fun fact, that book is only available, the prequel is only available on Kindle. It is not available anywhere else. So if you want to read the prequel, you have to go to get The Keeper on your Kindle. So
okay,
I'm sure they have something else now. I don't even know what they have now, but this is still very relevant, y'all. Very relevant. 495 books I got out here. The doctors were so happy that they wasn't bringing me another book. They was bringing me all the books. And so there are some great books on here. And I can't promise that I won't end up going back in here again. Because one of the things I'm guilty of is when I opened it up, I was like, oh, I remember that. And oh, I remember why I was reading this. And, you know, great books. But The Keeper, it was definitely one that keeps your attention because of the simple fact you just don't know where they're going with it. And once you hear this secret that, you know, this great secret that they're dead and how this can actually get them killed, you start to wonder, well, what does it mean to be alive and to be dead? So that is a very, very relevant theme even for today. You know, what is it to be alive and dead in this world? So just some of the other books that he has really quickly. Before this Book of Mortals, he has the Lost Book series, which is Chosen, Renegade, Chaos, Lunatic, and Elon. He has a Paradise novel, Showdown, The Saint and the Sinner. He has the Book of Mortals, and then he has the book House with Frank Peretti, Skin, Emmanuel's Veins, and The Blood Work. And I'd like to point out for all my movie lovers, there are 2 film adaptations of his books that, yes, I have seen them, and they are really good movies. And, you know, if you're one of those people that read a book and then want the movie to be the same way, don't do that. I've disappointed myself several times with that, Guardians of Gaul. And but the film adaptations are the movie 3 that came out in 2007 and the movie House that came out in 2008. That's actually my favorite. It's horror genre, really nice. He has a couple of graphic novels, one called Black, Red, White, another one called Chosen, Infidel, Renegade, Chaos, and the Circle series, and the Lost Books Visual Edition. And, you know, this ties into a lot of my loves, sci-fi, comics, graphic novels, Christianity, spiritual background stuff, and definitely the horror. So, that is my offering. The Keeper, Ted Dekker, and Tosca Lee. This part again is only available on Kindle, and then the rest of those books you can find in Goodreads, because I want to make sure you can find them today. So those are my offerings.
Oh wow. Yeah, you said they were going to be fun, and they are fun, but they also sound pretty deep too, and they also sound like they, especially when you talk about death and life and what it means to be dead and what it means to be alive, and then finding out that you're dead. I automatically thought to the distinction, or there might even be a double entendre to that is talking about life and death in the physical as well as the spiritual. So I'm not saying I never read these books. This is my first time hearing about this series and these authors. So I don't know, but that's where my mind went. I'm thinking, like, if I'm previewing these books, looking at the description of them and listening to what you described about them, that's where my mind went. There's something in there about physical life and death as well as spiritual life and death going on, at the same time there. But my question is, since you mentioned that these are Christian authors, and that Christianity is one of the themes or topics that comes up in their works. Let's talk about scripture. In that particular work that you share with me, do they incorporate scripture into the story or weave it into the narrative?
Well, you know what? I think that's I thank you. That's great. They actually don't, and that was one of the reasons why I chose it for the youth that I was working with at the time. One of the things that I found is, in this time when many of us have moved away from more of the traditional aspects of religion, i.e. the indoctrination side of it, people are approaching, Christianity, Judaism, and all of these other spaces, Islam, with a different eye. In these books, one of the things that I believe was the intention was not to make it too churchy or too religious, but what they did was they took very real themes and they were able to tie them into a story that was relatable and exciting. Because one of the things that it tells us in that the summary plot is that he's there to tell his brothers this great secret, and it can cost them their lives. And the secret is that they're already dead. So you start to wonder, well, where are they? When are they? What's been going on? And without giving too much of it away, I think that it's important that the way he begins the story by just letting them know, I have this terrible thing I have to tell you, and this is what it is. And the first question they ask, well, where are we? When are we? You know what I mean? And I think these are themes that carry over just into our everyday lives. One of the great questions of the universe is, who are we? Where are we? Where do we come from? Where are we going? And so in these books, he kind of, they kind of broach those type of things, and they broach spiritual things without bringing in the actual Bible and things like that. Okay. Just the moral and the morals, that the virtues, the lessons, the things like that. And I thought that was really great. And we also, again, as you know, when we're doing our human rights stuff, they talked about humanity in there and how this secret was going to either help to save humanity or destroy it. So sometimes we think about just, even in religion, does it do more harm than good? And I think that's one of the places where he's really great. Right before they get into the book Forbidden, that he starts to talk about, you know, some of the old antiquated ways that, you know, are causing the people to believe they are alive, but be very much dead in spirit. So it's a great set of books.
Yeah. It sounds like it. Like I'm fascinated. I want to read those. I want to read that series and see what direction they go into. You know, so it's a great offering right there.
I really enjoyed it, and I find that, you know, some of the books that are put out for, I guess they call it like the teen genre, you know, young adult literature. We talked about it before with some of these books. These authors really are gifted in the way of being able to present very heavy topics for youth to be able to pick up. And that is a skill. You know, that really is a skill, because, you know, when you are talking about topics that have not only, that don't only have relevance now, but have plagued people. We know that religion has caused wars, you know what I'm saying? And so to be able to take such a heavy topic and put it into a frame for the young people to read it without influencing them one way or the other, that is a definite skill set. And I'll say that these authors have done a pretty good job in doing that.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Sounds like it. And you're absolutely right. It is a skill. And I'm impressed when I see, you know, authors of, you know, teen and young adult novels and literature do that skillfully. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that was one of the things I liked, is because I know that when you working with the youth and you get a little too preachy, especially if that's not their background, they are going to completely lose interest. You work with youth every day. You have to find new and exciting ways, and ways that just really bring them in. And I think the mystery of this, you know, the mystery, the even a little bit of horror and on the edge of your seat kind of stuff, is some of the stuff that would definitely keep the young people interested in a book like this. And not only that, to, again, like I said, he has some horror movies out there that have some pretty heavy themes in it, if you're paying attention, and sets of other books. But this is definitely one of my favorites out of the ones that they've done, because it really it provokes the youth to think. And this is something that, you know, even now today, you and I, we do this work because we want people to revisit things. We want people to read some of these books and be able to think for themselves. And we can't we can't just keep allowing our children to grow all the way up and then say, oh yeah, by the way, change your mindset. You know what I mean? And it's like, not when we can be giving them things now to help them to think for themselves. And that's one of the things that this book does. It challenges them to ask themselves the hard questions about what it is they believe. And, you know, the last book, like I said, is called Sovereign. So again, going from a slave to a sovereign means that somewhere in that transformational journey, you decide to stop following and start leading, if nobody else, yourself. So I think it's a great series of books.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds like it. And that should be the goal for everything that's produced, whether, you know, especially, I mean, for everyone, but especially our youth, whether it's the books that you mentioned or if it's music, you know, hip hop, rap music, or whatever genre that you know, people are listening to and the youth are listening to. There should be some element of thought, provocation, you know, provocation going on in there.
Absolutely.
It's needed across the board. Need to be encouraging people to think across all forms of expression in media and art forms.
Absolutely. And challenge your own beliefs. A friend and I were talking earlier this rise, and she and I was saying how, the things you stand firm on at 21, at 41, you'll look back and be like, nah, I really thought I knew something back then. We have to continue to look at, the things that shape and mold us. And as we grow and as we know, these things change. And that's one of the reasons why when we do the revisit of books, we do that specifically to go in and say, hey, does this still apply? People always talking about readjusting their frame, but that means everything. That means all those things, because all of those things are part of your foundation, a part of your moral compass. So in reassessing these things, it helps you to shift and adjust. If any of you have ever gone camping and had a compass in your hand, you'll realize that it's constantly moving. You know what I mean? It's even in the most micro of ways, like just tiny tweaks and adjustments. This is not coming in to tell you, hey, change your whole mindset, but it's to provoke thought, to ask you, well, what do I really think about these things? And I think that's one of the things they do well in this, is they begin to challenge the reader into asking them, well, what do you think about this? Even though this is set in this unknown time period, what would you do in this situation? How would you address this situation? Are there situations like this that you're addressing now? So it's really, again, all about promoting that independent thought, and not only that, sparking conversations with those around you, because as we know, birds of a feather flock together. So this is about sharing information and being able to grow together.
Yep, absolutely. So yes, great offering from you, great offering from me.
Yes,
got two great offerings. We got another hit today. Another hit.
Yes. And as I said, everyone, we thank you for joining us, every 2 weeks. We love bringing these books to you. And we always encourage you, if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, anything that caught your eye, please feel free to leave comments below. Also, you can reach out to us on IG at Mawulisatemple1. You can reach out to Mr. Westbrooks at Mr. Westbrooks. And you can also email us, Mawulisatemple@gmail.com. If you have some books that you think would be interesting to share, please don't hesitate to send us those as well. And for all of our authors, all of our authors out there, you writing books, get them over to us, reach out to us, let us know, because this is a platform where we love to promote our authors and talk about their train of thought when they were writing these works, these masterpieces, these future legacy books. And when we can get a signature, we're happy to tell. Nick proved that.
Yeah.
but we really enjoy bringing these books to you, and this week was no different. I love the fact that you brought something, you were able to share those stories of how you use it. I was able to use these books in some of the youth groups and things that I work with Mawulisatemple, because again, we don't just wait for people to be 40, 50, 60 years old and have a revelation that they need to figure out what they was doing when they was 14, when we can work with them at 14. So right. This set of books, I think, would be a great read for parents and youth together. That would be a great family bonding exercise, a family bonding activity, excuse me. That would be great. I don't know how many people have reading time for their families, but I think we should normalize that again.
Yeah, no, I agree. Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. It needs to be brought back for bonding purposes and connection purposes, but also for literacy purposes too, because the the children that are read to and exposed to words and books and reading early on, those are the ones that grow up knowing more words and becoming more, educated and more of the free thinkers later on as adults. So yes, we need to bring that back.
I think it really encourages the inquisitiveness. I mean, I love to be read to. It's actually one of the things that I really, really enjoy, even at this age, and even appreciate more at this age, being able to just sit back and listen to someone read and be able to use my imagination. Because as we get older, we lose that connection sometimes with our imagination. And if we think about that, we'll see the importance of doing these things with our youth at a young age, when their imagination is just popping, when they can just imagine everything. They haven't been tainted and jaded by the world, and to make them think they have to think a certain way. And so it's a great opportunity just for families to grow together and and talk, have conversations. We just don't do that enough. I love these devices that we're on because they allow us to be able to come together from faraway places and share great things like UnRead and some of the other things we do. Your numerology, the temple and the healing circles and things like that. That's great. But being in person, being in community, and having these kind of intimate conversations and learning opportunities together is what's really going to help us moving forward if we are going to indeed become sovereign at some point.
Right.
You know what I mean? If we really going to go from that slavery to that sovereign space, it's going to take a lot of, examining what it is that we've been programmed and indoctrinated with, and learning how to think for ourselves and reframe these things.
Yep, that's right. That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So we did it again.
We did it again.
We did it again.
Right. Well, in that case, I'm done, y'all. I'm gonna let Nick take us on out of here.
I'm done too. And I think Roo closed it out on a strong note. Gave the people some things to marinate and think on for the rest of the weekend. Not just about the books and the type of books and offerings that we gave, but just to literacy and connection in general, in family and community. So we gave y'all a lot of food for thought, that should keep you nice and full and satiated. But you have been watching another amazing and powerful and fun-filled episode of UnRead. This is episode 25. This was our Surprise Me week, and we'll be back for our second and last show for April, for the month of April, on the 19th. It looks like I'm looking at the calendar. Yeah, so we're off on the 12th, and we'll be back on the 19th. And the 19th will be our last Saturday, April, for this month. So I'm definitely looking forward to that and what we'll bring, and thank you all for watching. Thank you all for hanging out with us, for watching, for sharing your comments, your love. And, we appreciate you. And we look forward to seeing you on episode and hanging out with you all for episode 26 of UnRead Book Review with Nick and Roo. And we are out.
We out, y'all. Peace.